Welcome to Culture, and I'm your host Akhilesh. Today, as I promised you, we have our 10th episode about equality. So let's get into it. Humans never consider other species as equals, and their theories don't as well. This is because of the dominating mindset which brought them to the top of the animal hierarchy. We crown ourselves as top and consider others as lowest species. It's true that any species living on Earth will do the same to others, and I won't say if it were any others, the story will change other than the characters. Since humanity dominates the world, it's our job to look at them, at least in the name of moral responsibilities. We must give them consideration other than killing them or fearing them on the side. A famous quote from J.K. Rowling is worth mentioning. If you want to see the true measure of a man, watch how he treats his inferiors, not his equals. What she said is really impressive and really relatable. Relatable to the current social structures, to the current social norms, society, and where we live. If you want to see the true measure of a man, yes, we really want to look at how he treats his inferiors and not his equals. If in case he's only respecting his equals, that means it's just like power respects power, like a power theory. So power theory cannot bring a peaceful society because many people won't be of people are always not same, and if the social structure only is on the basis of equalism, it cannot make up anything. It will only create a dystopia instead of a good world. Even though I can say like this, many people won't be like this. Many people won't be doing like this because they don't want such things. They believe that it's just the norms we created. Yes, it's the norms we created, and I won't argue that. But if we want to create a peaceful society, if we want to create a society that's based on perfect living, that should be looking more forward to the conserving of their species, the conserving of humanity. Even we want to consider this theory. We don't want power theory to dominate the world because this world cannot make anything with that. And I think equality is for every species who has a heart that hurts and a voice to be heard. Because in the case of equality we see today, that means the mainstream equalism, that's just based on something like humanity. That's just based on humanity. That means the humans are human society. But we must realize that it's not only for humanity, it's all for everything. That means we have many species that cooperates this world. That's with the help we live in this world. That means without bacteria we cannot survive. That's the truth. Without viruses we can't even survive. That means everything in this world have its own duty, and everything cooperates. This world cooperates, and that's how this world cycles on. So we must look at equality in a big perspective rather than seeing only through the humanity's eyes. Equality is actually for everything in this world, everything, not just acceptable or not just only for humans. So let's consider equality as a whole for everything. But each species will only save themselves first and then only they will look for others. But at least we must consider other species. At least we must consider them rather than killing them at the side or shooting them down or eating them in the right spot. That's not always right. That cannot make up something that we wish to. Let's come to the human equality. But if we consider human equality, we will realize that even some of us are under injustice just because they are denied equality of some kind. And This only proves that equality is a strange thing, and it's an utopian vision in all senses. In all senses, complete equality may not be possible, and the predominant liberalism pays it as a price. Even though we can say that with the help of liberalism, we can avoid all things, everything. We can bring up a big society. We can bring up everything. We can become a paradise. But that's not always possible. Even communism failed to bring such a situation into reality because of the corrupted mindsets of its autocratic leaders. They suppressed brutally everything there. They were not actually the representatives of the workers. That's the major failure of the communism. They were actually the representatives of themselves. They were they had many personal interests, and I must say that. From Lenin to Stalin to Putin, we all know that what happened to Russia. So we don't want any other examples other than that. Even Chinese Communist Party. It's also a big example, as Xi Jinping is being also even elected again for his entire lifetime. He can sit there and rule the party, rule the entire country up till he dies. That's good. In according to only personal interest, not just for something good for the country. Equality is one of the biggest humanitarian crises we face. All of us need equality and thrive for it. If in India it's caste hierarchy that attacks and marginalizes people, in the case of USA it's white supremacy over the black. What Wayan Harari says about the future scenarios of humans is interesting, and I will summarize it for you. If we go beyond this century to the next, we will create biological subdivisions among humans. This rich 1% will acquire advanced technologies that can improve their power, health, beauty, and skills. This will only worsen the issue of equality because we cannot claim that everyone breathes the same air and everyone's blood is red. This will only worsen the issue of equality because we cannot claim that everyone breathes the same air and everyone's blood is red. Our philosophical dimensions will have to face questions that will perplex the entire humanity and its future existence. Such rich superhumans will even allow the rest to peril when they enjoy the world's most beautiful days. From the hunter-gatherer societies to the present, we have many stories, many stories of inequality. But the globalization has definitely changed the global perspectives by uniting humanity, and the present world has less inequality than the century before. But the coming centuries will surely create inequality in terms of data acquisition and technological leaps. Humankind certainly faces a big three of superhumanity. But at present, a lot of us support other divisions, which will only lead our descendants to a pit of despair. The world of white supremacy or Brahmin supremacy won't create anything that's really beneficial for humanity. Instead, it will only worsen the political situation around the world. Humans grew because of two reasons: ability to unite with fictions, caste, class, religion, folk tales, and so on. And second is greed that won't satisfy with anything. But the same things can retard our power and can eventually lead to our apocalypse. I've already told in my ninth episode, Greed Justified, that it's greed that helped us to develop. It's greed that built a technological paradise for us where we live today. It's greed that leads the world. It's greed that makes up the entire humanity's progress. But I have said a drawback that greed can indeed retard our power because of the existence of personal interest. But if we uphold equality, we don't have to scare anything because equality will challenge other things such as greed, such as the greed and The ability to unite fictions, is good, because that's why the society exists today. But we must also realize that it's small societies that exist today. To become a big society, become a big society of one as a whole, we have a lot of distance to cover, because we need a single fiction, to believe in, and that must be humanity. So, upholding different and diverse traditions, I'm not opposing it, but we must not believe that it's the only culture that dominates the world, or it's the only culture that can bring peace to the world. We must realize that every culture has its own good and its own bad, and we must take every good from all the traditions around the world, and every bad we must eliminate them. Just cut them out, because we don't need them anymore. Small fictions actually kills us. It's not always good, because if two people who believes in two different cultures, they're coming to meet each other, and if they can't see each other and fights each other, and their community always are in war with each other, what's the use of such small fictions? We need a single fictions that can unite the entire human species in the world, the entire, and even more beyond that. We want something to relate with each other, including our co-mates in this planet. So humanity is one of the biggest thing to unite. Humanity is not only just for humans, that's all, because it's something beyond our concepts. Humanity is not only helping our fellow humans, but also helping our co-mates in this planet. It's a message of peace. And when it comes to greed, the personal interest comes to the scene, because it's the personal interest that destroys the power of the greed, and that's the real villain here. But if equality exists, as I said before, we don't have to scare anything, because if equality exists, birth-based caste discrimination won't exist, and on the other hand, white supremacy won't have a place at all. It's a personal interest that leads to inequality, because that dilutes our concepts. And this leads to fear and corruption. But fear can be avoided with social power. But corruption originates from personal interest and distracts that. It's a big task. Because if a country with many corruption, it's too difficult, because such a big community, we have to filter many things, and we need a big task force for that. And equality in all sense is not impossible, but it has a lot of distance for us to travel. Some people die in hunger when others die in obesity. And that's a reality actually. It's always important for us to realize that equality is only possible at the price of equal limits for humanity as a whole. And I think that's the only solution for the utopia of equality to become a part of our reality. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Consider subscribing and sharing the podcast if you think it's worth listening to. Leave comments on my newsletter, cultureman.substack.com, and I'll be happy to hear you and is waiting impatiently for your response. Meanwhile, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll be back with another interesting podcast episode the very next day. See you. Goodbye.